Hi, boys and girls. Okay, we're back to reading Election Blues. Hope you enjoyed what I read to you on Monday. I'm going to continue reading a few chapters today, and like you did on Monday, you'll have some comprehension questions to answer following what I've read. Chapter 4, Campaign Pains. The next day at school, Miss Riley gathered us at the back table to help us with our campaign plans. The rest of the class had to work on a fraction worksheet while we discussed the election. There were definitely some perks to being a campaign manager. Remember, he's TJ's campaign manager, and Simon is Danielle's campaign manager, which is going to make this a little sticky. Miss Riley folded her hands on the table and leaned forward, smiling. First of all, I want you all to know how proud I am of you for taking part in our class election. It shows that you are hardworking, responsible, and that you care about our school. Now, before you begin working on your speeches and posters, I have some advice for you. She paused and looked around the table, nodding slowly. It's important that you run a fair campaign. Be kind and cooperative. Talk about what you do well and why you'd be a good leader. Then come up with a catchy campaign slogan and design posters to get your classmates excited. The election will be in 2 weeks, and you will have a chance to give speeches before the voting begins. She smiled. And remember, you're already winners in my book because you're trying your best. So as a reward for your hard work, I have a little prize for all of you. She reached in her bag and pulled out a stack of tickets, which she fanned out in her hand. Here are some tickets for the Rail Hoppers baseball game this weekend. TJ's eyes grew wide. That's awesome, he whispered. He loved watching just about any sport, especially the Rail Hoppers, who were a minor league baseball team located just outside our town. He smiled and gave me a big thumbs up. Danielle said, "Thanks, Miss Riley, but you really didn't have to do that. When I win the election, representing our school will be rewarding enough." Well, Danielle, that's a nice way of looking at things. But I just wanted to give you kids a little reward for being such hard workers. She smiled and added, and we won't find out who will be representing our school for a few weeks yet. She gave each of us a few tickets. Meanwhile, go and have some fun with your friends at the baseball game. And here are a few extra tickets so you can bring your families with you too. I smiled. Thanks, Miss Riley. No problem. You kids deserve it. Now let's get to work on these campaigns, she said. Danielle and Simon didn't waste any time. They hurried to the computer table in the back of the classroom and started typing. Danielle designed posters with clip art while Simon created a PowerPoint presentation with songs and video clips. TJ and I shuffled back to our seats. I looked across the aisle at him and sighed. I had no idea how to do a PowerPoint presentation, and neither of us were good at making signs on the computer. I laughed and shook my head. We might be in trouble here. I don't even know where to start. Come on, Baker. You're my campaign manager. It's your job to make me look good. Don't drop the ball. You're supposed to come up with the brilliant ideas. Me? Come up with brilliant ideas? Are you sure you've got the right kid? Come on, Baker. We've got to beat Danielle. I thought about it for a minute. Okay, tell me something you're good at, and we'll try to work it into a campaign slogan. TJ nodded. Okay. How about football? Vote for TJ. He'll score a touchdown for our class. He smiled proudly. I shook my head. Nah, that sounds kinda lame. Come on, dude, there must be something else you're good at. TJ cracked his knuckles and stared blankly ahead. I thought for a minute. Well, how about this? You used to be kind of a bully and a jerk, and now you're not. TJ frowned. Thanks, Baker. Really feeling the love. I laughed. No, really. Maybe we can work with that. You know, vote for TJ. He'll make our school a bully-free zone. TJ looked uncertain. I don't know. Do you think they'd buy it? Well, it's true. You have changed a lot, and I think it's a great slogan for you. TJ shrugged. Okay, Baker, I'm counting on you. Don't mess this up. I nodded and scribbled the slogan in my notebook before we forgot it. All right, stop over my house after school and we can work on election posters. I think we have some extra poster boards in the basement. Who needs computers when we have paper and markers? We're going old school. We can hang them in the hallways and in the cafeteria. TJ crackled his knuckles. Geez, Baker, I hope you know what you're doing. I don't want to look like a fool in front of the whole class. Trust me, they'll look great, I smiled, but I couldn't help but feel Danielle was already winning the election and that it was partly my fault. I was in my room later that afternoon working on some posters and waiting for TJ to arrive, but he was almost an hour late and I was beginning to think that he forgot to come over. Finally, I heard a knock on my door and he walked in. How come you're so late? I asked. I'm just your campaign manager, not your servant. You've got to work on this too. That's when I noticed his eye. It looked puffy and was starting to turn black and blue. Whoa, what happened to you? I asked. TJ bit his lip and looked down. I fell down the stairs when I was carrying a laundry basket up from the basement. Ouch, does it hurt as bad as it looks? He shook his head. Nah, I'm okay. It's no big deal. Something just didn't seem right about the way he was acting. He kept looking away and just seemed too quiet. It felt like there was more to the story, but I just couldn't tell what. He was quiet for a moment, so I decided to change the subject. Well, we've got some posters here. We only had 4 in the basement, but I think that will be enough, I said, trying to smooth out the rolled edges of the poster boards. They were a little wrinkled, and there was a brown stain in the corner of one. But they would have to do. I grabbed a box of markers from my desk drawer, pulling out the blue one and handing the rest of the pack to TJ. I started writing our slogan on the first poster, but the blue marker ran out of ink, and I had to switch to purple marker halfway through. It looked a little sad, but we didn't have any extra posters, so it would have to do. We held our finished products up to admire our work. They said, "Vote for TJ. He'll make our school a bully-free zone." Then we wrote the word bully beneath the slogan and drew a big red circle around it with a line through the middle. It wasn't fancy, but it got the message across. We finished up just in time for dinner. Mom called from the kitchen. Hurry, boys, it's taco night. Does TJ want to stay for dinner? TJ grinned. You didn't have to ask him twice. He loved tacos. Yeah, thanks, Mrs. Baker, he shouted back. We were sitting at the table when Dad said, Hey, TJ, are you brave enough to try my famous hot sauce on your tacos? I shot TJ a look and shook my head. Don't do it, dude. You'll need an entire jug of water to wash it down. Believe me, I speak from experience. Yeah, but I'm not a wimp, no offense, Baker, and this stomach is made of steel, he said, patting his belly. I shook my head. Okay, but don't say that I didn't warn you. TJ grinned. Bring it on, Mr. Baker. You can't scare me. Dad passed him the bowl and TJ spooned a big scoop of sauce over his taco. take a bite, took a bite and smiled triumphantly. Nothing to it, he said, grinning proudly. Then he poured 2 more scoops of sauce over his taco. Dad looked at him uncertainly. You might want to slow down a bit, son. Sometimes that hot sauce takes a minute to kick in. Just then, TJ's eyes popped open and his face turned as red as a tomato. Water, need water, he sputtered as he grabbed his glass and guzzled his drink. Then he ran to the faucet and refilled his glass 3 more times, slugging it down before finally coming up for air. Whoa, Mr. Baker, he said, as he panted and wiped his eyebrow. You weren't kidding. You make wicked good taco sauce. That stuff is deadly, he said, smiling proudly. Dad laughed. Yeah, you have to go easy on that sauce. Even Copper won't go near it. Mom laughed, but then looked around the kitchen suspiciously. Where is Copper? He usually won't leave us alone during dinner. I hope he's not getting into trouble. A moment later, Copper pranced into the kitchen with something blue in his mouth. My eyes narrowed. What do you have there, boy? He stood by the door, paper clenched in his teeth, daring me to chase him. I took the bait. We dashed around the table 3 times before I was able to grab his collar and pry the paper from his mouth. Oh no, this is a piece from one of our posters. I looked at TJ. We left them on the floor in my room. We ran downstairs to my bedroom to survey the damage. Our posters were spread out on the floor with bite marks around all of the edges. You've got to be kidding me, I yelled. After all of our hard work, my psycho dog destroyed everything. I shook my head at the shredded bits of poster board scattered across the floor. TJ laughed and I shot him a look. It's not funny. He ruins everything. Well, no offense, Baker, but they really weren't that good to begin with. Copper just gave them a little character. He gave them character, all right. Copper pranced in the room, smiling his big dog smile. Apparently, he was very proud of his work. TJ patted him on the head. Yeah, he was just making our poster stand out a little bit, weren't you, boy? Copper sniffed his hand and licked him. You're a good boy. Don't let Baker tell you any different. You just wanted to take a little bite out of the posters. Take a bite, I repeated, thinking aloud. Huh? TJ said, looking up. What are you rambling about, Baker? That's it. Your new slogan. Take a bite out of bullying. TJ grinned. Yeah, I like it. We added the phrase to the bottom of each poster. It almost looked like the bite marks were supposed to be there as decorations. Then we stood back to take a look at our work. I guess this'll have to do, I said. TJ nodded. Yeah, they're not too terrible. Spoken like a real winner, I said, patting TJ on the back. You just better give a really good speech to make up for these lame posters, I said, laughing. TJ shrugged. Yeah, whatever. Let's go play some football. I'm going to read one more chapter. It's a short one. Chapter 5, TJ's Secret. We were in my front yard tossing around the football when TJ's dad pulled up in front of the house in his rusty Ford truck. He sat there with the engine idling loudly for a moment before he climbed out and staggered toward us. He was walking kind of weird, like he was dizzy or something. He grabbed the football out of TJ's hands. What's wrong with you? He shouted, slurring his words. You're here playing ball instead of home helping out? I told you to finish the laundry. Do you think we have a maid or something? Then he spun around and glared at me. At first, he looked surprised, like he forgot who I was. Then he hissed at me. TJ's got to go. Playtime is over. His breath reeked of alcohol. He was drunk. TJ's face was bright red. I could tell he was embarrassed, and he looked really scared too. I did the laundry, Pop. Don't you remember? I finished it before I came here. His dad shook his head. Let's go. Get in the car now. I swallowed hard. I didn't want TJ to get in the car with him. I knew how dangerous it was for his dad to drive drunk. I had to think fast, so I blurted out, TJ, I think you left your book bag in my dad's car, and you need that for school, right? My dad's gone to the store, but he'll be back any minute, and then we can take you home. TJ looked at me and nodded slowly. Yeah, my bag. I forgot my book bag. TJ's dad shook his head and spit on the ground. Can't count on you for anything, he muttered under his breath. Then he climbed back in the truck, slamming the door and peeling out, the engine roaring. TJ stood there in silence, his eyes locked on the ground. I didn't know what to say. I could tell he didn't want to talk about his dad, but I felt like I had to see if he was all right. TJ, are you okay? I asked timidly. At first, he didn't answer. It seemed like he didn't even hear me. Then he nodded, wiped his tears, and turned toward me. Yeah, I'm okay. It's just that my dad has been going through a tough time lately. You know, since my mom left a few years back, it's been hard. And he tried to take care of me and Leroy, but lately I think it's just too much. And he's not himself. I wasn't quite sure what he was saying, and I looked at his bruised eye, hoping that his dad had nothing to do with his injury. Things are a little tough right now, but we'll be all right, he said. I nodded. But are you okay? I asked, motioning to his bruise. I'm fine, Baker. My dad has a temper, but he would never hurt me. Not on purpose, anyway. It was a dumb accident. He was walking upstairs, and I was behind him carrying the laundry basket. Then he lost his balance and fell down the stairs. Then we both fell, and I hit my head on the railing. Anyway, I'm fine. Don't make a big deal about it, okay? And he's not always like that. He used to be really different. He shook his head. You just don't understand. Then he stiffened up and shot me an angry look. And besides, this is really none of your business. Not every family is perfect like yours. So just butt out and mind your own business. Okay? I nodded, but I couldn't help but feel that something was really wrong. When Dad got back from the store, we dropped TJ off at his house. But we barely said a word the whole way. When TJ got out of the car, Dad asked, "What's the matter? Did you guys have an argument or something?" TJ was awfully quiet during the car ride. Maybe my taco sauce was just too much for him. I was quiet for a moment. I really didn't know if I should say anything to my dad. But I knew that TJ was in trouble and that he needed help. Dad, I'm not sure. But when TJ's father came to get him today, he was acting really weird, and I think he was drunk. Dad got quiet. His brow furrowed. What makes you think that? He asked. Well, he was walking funny and acting weird, and his breath smelled like beer, and he wanted to drive TJ home like that. Dad shook his head. Oh boy, that's not good. I'm glad that you had me drive him home instead. Maybe I should have a talk with his father. I don't know if that's a good idea, Dad. I hesitated for a moment, wondering if I should tell him that there was more, that I was worried about TJ's black eye and how he got it. But then I remembered how angry TJ looked when he told me to mind my own business. So I decided to keep my mouth shut. I'm going to stop there. I'm stopping on chapter 6, so I will pick up on chapter 6 tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed what I read today, And don't forget to answer the comprehension questions that I have posted below this YouTube video. See you tomorrow.